Okay. Okay, thank you for those of you who have joined us today. Welcome to The Truth About Private Practice, What Grad School Didn't Teach You. I'm Angela Edward. I'm a program committee member at Psychologists of Color Incorporated. The mission of Psychologists of Color is to increase the number of psychologists of color completing graduate school, becoming licensed, and successfully launching their careers. We offer targeted support services, and this includes mentorships, support groups, academic tutoring, test preparation, and business coaching to psychologists of color. And at its core, this nonprofit is about racial justice and equality within the field of psychology. We aim to continue offering free events, and tax-deductible donations will assist in providing resources for our community. So I will actually share a link that if anyone is interested in donating, it'll be in the chat this evening. But real quick for housekeeping. Um, so for this evening, please keep your cameras on and your microphones off during the presentation if possible. There will be a time at the very end for Q&A, so please hold questions until the end. And then I'll just be moderating the chat throughout the evening for any odd end needs. But with that being said, let me introduce our speaker for the evening, C. Anderson, MS, LPCS, NCC, CCH. C is a licensed therapist, certified hypnotist, and executive coach. She helps powerhouse leaders release the past, rewire their subconscious, and rise into their evolution. She's been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, and NPR, and she's the author of Love Taps and The Strong Woman's Guide. We're very lucky to have her, so please give a warm welcome to C.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here. And so we're just going to have a very intimate conversation about what it looks like post-graduate school if you are deciding to go into private practice. I have been in private practice for about 4 years now. And I'm going to share a little bit with you about the journey and how it kind of unfolded for me. None of which was covered in graduate school or practicum or internship. And so I kind of had to learn from many different teachers and mistakes. And I would love to save you all the heartache in the time if any of this resonates with you. So just a little bit about me. So I am a licensed professional counselor and supervisor. I supervise provisionally licensed the ALCs here in Alabama. I'm licensed in Alabama, Georgia, Ohio, and Washington, D.C., and I'm also nationally certified, and I'm also a certified clinical hypnotherapist. And so I've done so much. Like I've done all the things, all the things. And so I've kind of condensed it down into what might be a great starting point for any of you who are considering going into practice for yourself or group practice, etc. And so I have a video. It's my reel. I want to play it for you because in a moment, I'm going to show you how all of this kind of connects with the way that I practice. So hopefully the link will play and you can here. Let's see. Make sure that you guys can hear the sound. Okay. Yes. All right. Can everyone see the screen?
Today. So we wanted to bring in this woman. She is amazing. She is so talented. She's a mental health consultant, speaker, trauma therapist, author. I mean, you name it. She is one of the most sought after speakers on mental wellness while leading those impacted from victimhood to victory.
What she said today was something that resonated with me so much that it is changing my life today.
Is a mechanism put in place to keep us from doing the wrong thing. But in that instance, you are now programmed to believe.
Inspiring, amazing, uplifting. Every day session was amazing.
No.
No, unfortunately,
Okay.
That I needed. It was
Okay, hold on one second. Let me see if I can switch it to this one. And it should work. All right, can you all see that?
Today.
Yes.
So we wanted to bring
Okay,
in this woman. She is
awesome.
amazing. She is so talented. She's a mental health consultant, speaker, trauma therapist, author. I mean, you name it. She is one of the most sought after speakers on mental wellness while leading those impacted from victimhood to victory.
What she said today was something that resonated with me so much that it is changing my life today.
Is a mechanism put in place to keep us from doing the wrong thing. But in that instance, you are now programmed to believe.
Inspiring, amazing,
Uplifting.
energizing.
She laid out some great things that are consistent reminders. I wrote them down. I got time myself every day.
Session was amazing. It's literally a session that I didn't realize that I needed.
It was exactly what you needed to really step back out into the workplace.
Play, guess what changes? Your behavior.
Sometimes when we come into contact with situations that look like what we've been through and we are not ready to heal, denial is our only refuge.
Okay, so I am going to now share the other screen so we can get back to the presentation, because I wanted you all to have that as a overarching concept, because what I'm about to say fits under that umbrella. So one of the things that I did not learn in graduate school was that practice can look any way that you desire it to look. And what I mean by that is you have so many opportunities to do good clinical work in this world, and it's going to be different for everybody. So really quick, these are some of the objectives for today's talk. I want you to hold your questions until the end. I'm going to go over a lot of information in a short period of time, but please, please, please write down any questions that you have, any thoughts, any things that maybe you're not very clear on, or I need to explain further, and we'll get into your questions. So where do you start? If you decide to go into any type of practice where you are going to be paid through insurance, where you are going to work for a company, if you're going to work for a group practice, you're going to need a certain amount of credentials to start just baseline. For instance, when I was first licensed, I was working for a nonprofit. The nonprofit, however, accepted insurance. And so they were telling me all these things that I needed, and I'd never heard of any of these documents, any of these credentials, any of these numbers, these portals that I needed access to. And so it was all very new to me. And so the first one was a national provider identifier, that NPI. So if you are working in a clinical setting, you're likely going to need that NPI. That number is what you're using to bill. That number is what you're using in your communication with any insurance companies. That number is going to be assigned and follow you throughout your clinical career. So when you pick this number, any information that you attach to it, you want to make sure that it's information that doesn't change often, like a stable address, a phone number that you will likely keep for years to come, email addresses that you are going to keep for years to come, because you get all type of peripheral emails and phone numbers as a result of this one piece of information. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you sign up for your MPI and they will award you your MPI, that information goes into a public database. So you are going to get a lot of spam emails, a lot of spam phone calls, a lot of people trying to sell you stuff for your practice. So whatever information that you do not want made public, you do not want on Google, you want to create a dummy number or an email address that allows you some sort of anonymity because it will show up in Google searches. Secondly, you'll need to start your portal. You can actually start this now. The CHQH, it is the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare, and it is a database, a portal for providers and for insurance companies that allows you to streamline all of your information. So your education information. So in this database, you'll have to have readily available your graduate and any postgraduate degrees, certifications, your malpractice insurance, so your certificate of insurance, your general liability insurance. You'll need to also upload any type of certification or designation that you have in your name. You need to have proof of all of that. This is where insurance companies are going to come and look to see if all of your information is up to date, if it's accurate, if it's truthful, if they can validate it, and then you have to attest to this information every 120 days. So if your policy lapse, they'll get a notice, you'll get a notice. Some insurance companies will let you know that your information is going to expire soon, but this is another place that you're going to need to house information 90% of the time, regardless of the type of practice or the work that you decide to do. If you are going to open a private practice, which means that you are the owner and the operator of the practice, you're going to need to decide what type of business you want to form. This can also vary by state, and it's dependent upon what your state designates as the type of formation for your industry. So for some people, it's an LLC. For others, depending upon their state, it's a PLLC. For some people, it will be an S Corp, depending on how much revenue you're generating, because that also changes your tax liability and your tax structure. So before you form your business, I know it's exciting to get your logo and to come up with a name and all these amazing things. You want to talk to a business attorney in your state so that you can make sure that everything you're doing is in line with what your state requires. And you want to make sure that the tax structure is going to be beneficial to how you want to run your practice. Once that is complete, you can get an EIN, which is an employer identification number, and that comes from the IRS. Some people use their social security numbers. I prefer not to put my social everywhere because anytime you're taking insurance, they're going to constantly ask you for this number, even if you're calling to check on eligibility for a patient. So you want to get an EIN, and you want to make sure that the address connected to that EIN is one that you don't mind becoming readily available, because sometimes that information gets out as well. Your bank account, you want to separate everything from personal and business, because if you have a malpractice suit or if someone sues you and they can say, well, wait a minute, her business didn't make a lot of money, but she has this house and this car and all these other assets, and she uses her personal bank account, then they can they can prove that, and they can come after your personal assets. They can do what's called piercing the veil. And that is what attorneys attempt to do if your LLC is not making enough money to satisfy any sort of suit. Insurances. I would rather be overinsured any day than to not have enough insurance. So on top of your malpractice insurance, you want general liability insurance. I have two companies. I have my clinical practice, which is Revita Therapy and Wellness. And then I have a consulting company, which is C Consulting LLC. My practice is where I do all of my clinical work. If it's clinical, it's going to be done under that umbrella. If I am consulting, if I am giving my expertise to media, a magazine, a television show, radio, I am doing all of that under my consulting company. because I have two different kinds of insurance. So I have malpractice insurance for my clinical work, and then I have general business insurance. And then on my consulting side, I have coaching and consulting insurance. It's very different from malpractice because in coaching and consulting, you are actually giving people directives. And so you want to be able to protect yourself that maybe they implemented something that you said or they thought you said and something happened. If you have been working with a business and that business decides that you affected their revenue negatively with the information you provided, all of that. And then next, really being very clear if private practice is for you. Being a business owner, it may look cute on Instagram. It gives you a lot of freedom, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility and accountability during times when you don't feel like being responsible or accountable. So you want to keep that in mind. A really quick overview of how I transitioned was initially I worked for a nonprofit. I left a nonprofit. I kind of got poached with a local psychologist. No, she was a psychiatrist, excuse me, to go into her practice. And I worked for her for 3 years. I always paid attention. I learned, I asked questions. And then we got to a place where I was no longer comfortable with the way that some of her staff was handling patients of color. And so I wanted to create a practice that would honor the nuances of being born in a non-white body. And so that's when I decided to leave. And then I had to also learn all of the things that kind of went along with having a flourishing, compliant private practice. All right, so first I want you to think about, super important, your vision for your practice. Your vision includes who you serve and why you want to serve them. So for me, if you go to my website, you'll see that it is very POC affirming. It is affirming for marginalized populations so that when they go to the website, they already understand that this is a place where they are safe. This is a place where they are seen and heard. And this is a place that is going to listen to them and advocate for them. For so many populations, particularly Black women, Black men, LGBTQ plus community members, they have had some sort of previous therapeutic experience that has been harmful on some continuum. For some people, it's I never want to go to therapy again. For other people, it's I think I want to try, but I want to make sure I'm not harmed like I was before. So you want to get really, really clear on who you serve. And then you want to get clear on why you want to serve that population. I tell all of my ALCs, I tell anyone that comes to me for mentorship that you cannot fake this work. If you are not in it to change and transform and to hold space for people who aren't always kind, who don't always use their words the way that they should, who lash out because you're just somebody there and the person they want to lash out is not. If you are not clear on why you're doing this work, you will burn out really, really easily. And so for me, a lot of that energetic exchange of the work comes from me seeing a woman who thought that being angry was just part of her identity. And now she understands what it's like to have a regulated nervous system, right? So deciding who you want to serve, what population lights you up, what population is so far from where you desire to be that you want to have a list of referrals if anybody should contact you and they have that particular challenge. So be very, very clear on your vision. Your mission.
Why did you get into this work? Your mission should incorporate, your mission should incorporate who you hope to be and what you want to see in this life. What you want to see. So if you are being the change that you desire in this lifetime on this planet, what is the legacy? What does it look like realized? What does it look like when you are no longer here and someone else is carrying the torch of the work that you started? So what is the impact that you want to make on the people who are coming to you like you have all the answers? They are coming to you because you have PhD or PsyD behind your name, and they believe that you can fix them. Okay? Be very aware of what your ecosystem looks like, of who you're serving and the how of your service. And I keep saying the word serve because for me, this is service. Yes, I get paid for it. Yes, there is a monetary exchange. There is currency because that's just how we move in this world and in this space. But for me, it is service. And the day that it stops being service for me is the day that I no longer want to do it. So in your ecosystem, this is what I meant earlier when I said I wanted to show you that reel so you could see all of the different ways, examples, possibilities for your service. So we'll have direct services, which is you are client facing. You are having one-on-ones, maybe group sessions. Maybe you are in nonprofit practice. Maybe you are in clinicals. You are one-to-one facing with the actual patient. For some people, that's all that they do. For some people, that is fulfilling. All right. And if that's all you want to do it well. Do it well. If you decide that you want to have a larger impact, an impact that is one to many, then that is where you start building this service ecosystem. And so that could look like media. So for instance, I get a lot of inquiries from reporters, Roland Martin, I've done that several times, radio, to weigh in on hot topics or to weigh in on current events because they want someone who is not going to give them pop psychology. They want someone who is educated, trained, certified, and experienced to speak on particularly mental health topics, but topics, if you operate like me, you understand that everything involves mental health. So it could be media, right? It could be you giving of your time and of yourself via social media. We know that therapy talk, right? That subset of TikTok where people just kind of go and search things. Do I have anxiety? Oh my gosh, what's EMDR? Parasympathetic nervous system. What's that, right? So do you want to be one of the voices that offers accurate, scientifically backed information? Do you want to be one of those voices? That can also look like you want to write a book. The book that Angela mentioned earlier, I wrote that book while I was under supervision. At the time, I was working for a nonprofit that focused on sexual assault and domestic violence recovery. And so I kept finding myself explaining and giving the same information to clients. And so I said, well, maybe I should just put this in a book and they can kind of grab it and go and have it. And that's how my first book was born. So that was another way that I was providing the opportunity to give support and do good work. Community. Are you a grassroots, boots on the ground kind of clinician? Do you want to be in the trenches
on the front lines with the issues and the challenges that your ideal population is facing? And if so, what does that require of you? Be very aware that when you branch into advocacy, you are going to, or activism, you are going to have people who immediately see that you have a license and want to file a complaint because they don't like that you help trans women, or they don't like that you are working diligently for the mental health of Black men. So you want to think about what in your work are you opening yourself up to the risk and the liability. That's why I said I have so much insurance and attorneys on deck. Okay. And then your passion mark. This is that thing that you are so passionate about that if you could get up for an hour and speak about everything, you could speak about it off the top of your head because you understand it so well. You are constantly updating your data bank on statistics about that thing. What is your passion mark and what do you want to leave in its body of work? So for me, I love working with Black and Brown women, reclaiming and releasing intergenerational transmissions and creating legacy. I love that work. And so my hope is that in 30 years when I retire or whenever I see fit to retire, is that I will have replicated the work and I will have trained others and they will take up that mantle. So you want to be very clear about your passion and why you're doing this. Okay. Another thing is you want to be very careful and very selective of your mentors, the people that have gone before you and you're gleaning from them. You're taking their advice. You're watching the way that they move. You're very in tune with the way that they are supporting their patients and clients. Because I had an experience. The nonprofit I worked for when I was under supervision finishing my licensure hours. I was the only Black therapist in the practice, and there were maybe 8, most of them older white women. And so when I got an opportunity to work somewhere else for more money, more experience, and I took it. I took my resignation letter into the office, and she kind of looked at me. She's an older white woman, and she had been a professor of mine, and she had also been my licensed supervisor. And I said, we need to talk. And so she took it and she read it, and I was giving them, I think, 2 months, right? So I'm being gracious to help transfer for continuation. And she took the folder, she opened it, she reads it, and then she says, but what are we going to do about diversity now? And she takes the folder, throws it to the side, gets up out of her chair, and she walks out into the parking lot and gets in her car and speeds away. And I was left in the office like, what am I supposed to do with this, right? And then this was also someone that up until that point I had looked up to. And so you want to be very careful who you are learning from. You want to be very careful of the advice that you take, because some people maybe have heard something or they had a poor experience, or maybe it just wasn't for them. And so you don't want other people's mistakes to color what it is that you decide to do. All right. And so this is one of my personal quotes. My goal in this life every day is to be so intentional about the dash between my birth year and whenever I am called home, that both of those dates become irrelevant, because the work was good and the legacy left is foundational, and other clinicians and other practitioners are able to build upon it. They're able to add to what I've done. And so I urge all of you to kind of consider that, right? You've gone through so many years of school. You've gone through so much labor emotionally to do this work. What does it mean at the end of the day? If you're going into an office and you would rather your whole schedule for the day be canceled, that might not be best suited for you. And so getting super, super clear on what you can do every day, what would wake you up in the morning and get you so excited that you are so ready to jump out of bed and live to the fullest and be immersed in this work. That is what's going to sustain you throughout the practice building process. Because when you bill for 20 sessions and insurance says we're only paying you for 2, what's going to sustain you? If you are deciding to have a private pay practice and people look at you a certain way and say that you are blocking access to care because you want to be paid in cash, what is going to sustain you? So I want you guys to think about that. And so this is my contact information. I wanted to leave enough time for questions, but this is my contact information. If you all want to take a screenshot, you're welcome to reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions that maybe you want to ask off the record. But I want to come back. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see. And then if we have any questions, I am so happy to answer.
We can just come off mute.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Alana.
Hi.
Thank you just, for holding this space for us. When I saw the topic, I was super interested. So kind of hearing your journey gives me hope. But one question I had is like, what is the financial cost of this upstart process? Like, yes, these, steps have to be taken. Is there a cost to it? Or a timing of like how these things actually get approved?
So that is, I'm going to say that question is like super loaded because it is so different for everybody. For me, startup costs, because first of all, where there's a will, there's a way. So you can start a practice, right? You can hang your proverbial shingle and do everything yourself. But then you have to ask yourself, do I know what I'm doing? Do I want oversight? Is this going to cost me too much time and I can save time and just pay money? So for instance, business formation, right? You decided you want to open your practice and you need to form your LLC. Well, in most states, that application is going to be probably under $200, right? And then you say, okay, my malpractice. You should have malpractice insurance anyway if you've been in clinicals up until this point, you probably already have a policy that's going to be about $200. Initially, when I started my practice, I wanted to have a nurse practitioner. Alabama is so antiquated in a lot of its laws and oversight that my malpractice insurance would have been like an additional $5,000 to have a nurse practitioner on site. Okay. So, and some other just red tape in the state of Alabama, they need a psychiatrist to oversee them and they can't work independently. Like it's just crazy. So formation, you're going to look at $200 maybe for your filing, and then you have to write your articles of incorporation, your operating agreement. Even if you are a solo business owner, you need to have an operating agreement. These are the documents that banks are going to ask for because they want to make sure that you're legit. So banks are going to say, well, if you are a business and you have this EIN number, we also want to see these other pieces of information. So when I was forming my business, luckily, one of my therapist friends, her husband was an attorney, and so he did everything for me. It was not cheap, but it wasn't as expensive. But now you can go, on Chat GPT, and Chat GPT can type up articles and you can have an attorney, review it. If you're telehealth and you don't need an office, you don't have as much overhead. You can get what's called a business associate agreement with your online platform, be it iPlum, be it Google, be it Zoom, and they're HIPAA compliant, meaning that they will protect the patient health information at PHI. Maybe that costs you $50, right? Or you can have a fancy telehealth platform through your EHR, like Theranest or like Simple Practice, and maybe that's going to be a little more information. So what I'm doing here, if you notice, is I'm kind of giving you like the do-it-yourself, but then also if you decide to invest a lot of money up front, you can do both of those things. Just depends on your pocket. Another thing I was able to do, there was and I'll see if I can find this information and provide it to Angela for you all, but there is a company. It's ran by therapists, and they already have all of the documents that you would need, like your informed consent, like your credit card authorization, all of this stuff. And you just pay $500 for the bundle of all of the documents, and you can customize them. Okay. So again, it really depends on if you want to just go all out because you're not wanting to use the elbow grease, so to speak, to kind of get things going, and you want it done for you, you're going to pay for it. But if you don't have that much coin in your pocket, you can still form and start your practice. Okay. So if you're going to do telehealth, you're not going to have the overhead that you would if you needed to find an office for rent. Okay. One of the things that came out of COVID was we went from being, for most practices, being in person to all of a sudden everybody's virtual. So now we got to learn this virtual thing. Okay. So when I opened my practice, I said, I want a space because we're coming out of COVID. People want to be in person, and I like to decorate. So I wanted a really nice office. So if you see, it's just very all the things for people that look like me. And that quote up there is actually Lauryn Hill. It says, how you gonna win if you ain't right within? So I really wanted to create a space where women who looked like me could breathe. Okay, so that was my overhead. Does that help you, Alana?
It does.
Okay.
And as people talk, I would just love to know a little how people are coming to the space from what background, because I am in North Carolina.
Okay.
But from California, so very different, right? Like how the state regulates things. But
Yes.
I am a school psychologist by trade, working within public schools. But in North Carolina, a master's level psychologist can still take the exam for psychology and become a licensed psychological associate, which allows me.
California was not having any of that.
No, in California, I would take another exam, but be an LEP, which is a licensed educational psychologist. But here in North Carolina, I can bill insurance under the title of an LPA. So yes, world of a difference depending on where you live. So
yes.
That is why this resonates with me. But I currently work virtually as a school psychologist, and I have been working virtually for the last 6 years. So I'm trying to figure out what is that next layer of how I work with children and families. One of my passions is middle school age,
Mm-hmm.
working with neurodiverse populations
Yes.
and students of color. So all of the
Beautiful.
things, but
I
you even,
love that.
yeah, so even you talking about tapping into the why, the mission, before you move into these other technical things of like business formation, I think is super valuable. So
Yes. And I phrase it that way just because for me, I'm originally from DC. I went to Howard, but when I got to Alabama, the culture shock here, it was almost as if my soul was like, they need to be freed. I mean, the you can smell, feel the oppression almost. It's a lot. And so had I not made a very clear decision about why I was doing this work, oh, I would be done. When you have a patient sit across from you to say, "Oh, you're a good black," and you have to figure out what this, yeah, I would have been done. But I was very clear on my mission, my mission and my vision and my why, to where most of the things kind of just, water off of a duck's back, so to speak. So yeah, yeah. Guadalupe and Shalonda, did either of you have questions?
Hi, I didn't have a question just yet specifically, but thank you for, everything you've been sharing. I've been I was at
Sure.
work and I hopped on the call right away because I was really interested in the topic when I saw it being promoted, and I'm like
Yeah.
still very like up and coming, like early stages in my career. I'm like trying to go to graduate school, but I've always had this like kind of in the back of my idea of maybe one day having like my own practice, because like kind of like you,
Mhm.
my values and the things that I want to do with like mental health and like helps heal individuals, it kind of
Yes.
aligns very closely to a lot of the things you've been saying. So, and it's like kind of the first time I've heard someone else kind of really talk about like the why, like the
Mm.
purpose, and keeping those things like really front and center because it will help you as you're going in your career.
Thank
So it
you.
made me feel very seen. So I really appreciate
Oh,
that.
good.
Yeah, I'm in California. I
Yeah.
already graduated. I got my BA. I'm trying to go to graduate school, and I've been applying for like the past 3 years in a row, and I'm actually
Okay.
currently applying.
Okay.
Um, so in I want to get my degree in clinical psychology and want to work in
Mhm.
geropsychology. So specifically with like older adults. And I've
Yes.
had experience working with older adults, and I really love that population, and I think there just needs to be so much more support.
Wow.
Um, and I, especially with under like POC older adults that I've worked with. I worked with a lot of like Native Americans in the past, and I just want to continue that work. So yeah, like this
Wow.
has been just like this was very I like just kind of hearing a little bit more about things that, because yeah, I don't really get, no one ever tells me about what it's like having your own private practice and what that looks like. So I
Yes.
always love to educate myself, and I love learning more about different career
Good.
opportunities. So this has been very
Yeah, because
helpful.
as you're going, right, the more information you have, the more informed your decisions can be. And so you can make different decisions based upon what you actually know now about what private practice can look like.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think one of the things that I work with therapists on is really removing those limitations that professors who more often are stuck in academia, um, they have difficulty relating to what it looks like applied, especially in 2025. Therapy looks very different than it looked 10 years ago. Therapy looks very different than most of, when the professors were in school and were actually practicing. So I want to always be very clear and very transparent from a lived experience perspective. Shalonda, hi. How are you?
Hello.
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I
Good,
had my
good.
camera off because I was at the gym on the treadmill.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So I was
Heart healthy. I love it.
multitasking. But
Oh, good.
a little bit about myself. I just became an LCSW
Mhm.
like 2 weeks ago. I passed my clinical exam. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Um, and let's see, I graduated. I'm from California. Um, and I am a school social worker primarily. Um, um, and in my role, I work in Orange County. So Orange County is an interesting place
Mm-hmm.
where Black people, we are a very small part of the population.
Okay.
But in the school system, K through 12, Black kids are disproportionately overrepresented in, you know, all the things that are
Yep.
not good.
Yes.
So, from discipline to
Mm-hmm.
over-identification with special ed to
Mm-hmm.
attendance. Um, so my role is very interesting. It's a merge between mental health and community support. So I specialize in working with Black students. And my role is sort of like quasi-administrative. So I get to do direct work. So I do groups with Black students across the district, like counseling
Nice.
groups. And then on a case by case basis, I do individual counseling. I also, because we have to be in compliance with the state for special ed,
Mhm.
then the school sites have to consult with me when they're doing the assessments for Black students so
Good.
that they don't over identify. And
Yep.
then the other piece of the work that I do is parent engagement. So I also hold a parent community group so that parents can learn about the school system, how to navigate it, what's on the chessboard, how to move the pieces, right? Um, and then the
Mhm.
final piece of my work is on the macro level, I oversee an anti-bias program or grant throughout the district. So I do a lot. Um,
Nice.
and so I've been thinking about, but I want to take my time. I don't want to rush. What could private practice look like for me? Do I want to
Mm-hmm.
continue to work with students? Do
Mm-hmm.
I, because working with kids is really hard. Actually, let me rephrase that. Working with the kids is easy. It's the adults.
That is one of the reasons why I used to start at 10 and now I only see adults.
Yeah.
Every blue moon I will see adolescents who meet the age of medical consent in the state of Alabama. I've had two people this month and they were like, please, please, please. I'm like, okay, we'll do. And it turned out really, really well. But the parents can make it more challenging, right?
Yeah.
And kind of sometimes interrupt or rupture the therapeutic relationship with the child. But
Yes.
as you were talking, and even with Guadalupe and Alana, as you all are talking, my brain is already thinking about the dozens of things that you all could do with your respective specialties, right? Because, so Shalonda, when you mention that you work with children, in a one advocating for fair assessment, right?
Hmm.
Um,
And discipline.
immediate, yes. So immediately, you know what I started thinking about? I started to think about how guess who needs to hear from Shalonda? Like not 2 years from now when you got it all together, but today. School association conferences, parenting conferences, lawmakers, right? Advocating for bills in the legislature for your county or for your state. All of that. All of that. When you work with children, when you specialize in children, you have to look at their ecosystem, right? So this is parent work, teachers and administrators, lawmakers, grandparents, siblings, right? There's all of that. When Guadalupe was talking, she wants to work with the geriatric population, right? Older individuals. So who needs to hear from her? Families, right? Of that elder, of that senior individual, probably their healthcare workers. That's a whole different population. You have not seen anything unless you have seen someone who is suffering from a UTI that has caused symptoms of dementia, and the family doesn't know what to do. Right? So as you look at that population that you want to work with, who in their sphere needs to work with you? So if I'm the expert on women and wellness, I need to be talking to their partners, right? Helping their partners understand some things, helping clinicians and other businesses that focus on that particular population, because you all are yes, the client is the expert on their life, but when we're talking about the education model, right, the psychoeducation around things, best practices, you all are the first line. So don't think of private practice just as, okay, I'm going to see this client. It could be I'm going to see this client and I'm preparing a talk for the ADD ADHD Association of California. I'm preparing a talk for the prison system, their board. We're not going to act like that school to prison pipeline doesn't exist, right? So I say all of that to encourage you as you are envisioning, as you are allowing your soul's purpose in this work to come forward. It's always going to be one bigger than you, but it's always going to be, I want to work with them and the people and spaces and things that make their world go round. Does that make sense? Good, 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 good. Yes. So this has been so much fun. If I think of any other resources, I'm happy to get those out to you all. If you have my contact information and you have questions and you want to reach out, keep my number. Sure. So my my phone number, the office number is 334-377-3747. My social media is CE, so C Anderson Live. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc., etc. And then my email address is hello@C Anderson Live. My website, C Anderson Live. And if you all ever want, I still have people that reach out to me from when I talk to graduate students on campus, and they'll say, hey, I remember, and did you know, and can you help? Absolutely. Just send me a message. Because why? This is part of the service. This is part of the service. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
So
look at
thank
your
you.
messages on Instagram, like DM? I was like to.
I do. I try to check them like once a day. So if you ever reach out there, just give me a day. But usually, yes, I do respond.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there anything else I can do for you all?
I had one question. You were
Sure.
talking about on the MPI, making sure that the information you put there is pretty consistent and doesn't change often. And then you mentioned, I think, using a dummy email for something else. So I was trying to figure out which one. When?
So what I do is I have an email that I had since college, and please don't ask me when I graduated. So I have a old email address, right? And then I have one that is just for therapist stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't use it on any of like my shopping or my bill accounts or any of that stuff, right? Because they sell your information. So that particular email address, I don't use it for anything else. So I have it it's in my MPI portfolio, it's in my CHQH, it's in I don't think you need an email, but you need an address when you send information for your EIN. So like you don't want to use your personal cell. So maybe you have a Google Voice number.
Gotcha.
Because that cell phone number, it will end up and people will be calling you. Okay. So you want to have maybe like a Google Voice number that you already have and designate. I've had one that I've had for like 15 years. So it's not, yeah. So maybe like a Google Voice number and then an email address that you use strictly for those things. So for instance, if your Gmail is the email that is connected to like all your phone stuff, like your master Gmail, you don't want to use that email address.
Right.
Because that's going to put it on the dark web. People can get it. People can break into your stuff. I use for my master email address that connects everything to my phone, I don't use it for anything.
Gotcha.
Anything. My mailing address, I have a PO box. I've had the PO box for probably 13 years because I move a lot. So, well, I haven't moved recently, but like that's going to be consistent even if I decide to move, you know, somewhere. So I'm always going right back to that same address, that same phone number. So that push comes to shove, they say, hey, I need you to verify this phone number. And I can't remember what I was doing when I did that thing. It's probably going to be that phone number. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Yeah. And your future patients will Google you and you don't want your personal information, address, etc., coming up in those Google searches. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else?
Just a big thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. It's always a pleasure to share. And you guys have my contact information if you need to reach out, if you have a question, if you want to run something by me. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you and I will, find a resource for you. But if I have any experience, I will say this has been my experience and I'm happy to share it with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think Angela put something in the chat about a survey, donations, etc. And so Angela, if you need anything from me, you have my contact information. I hope that people are able to come on and get the recording and listen. And thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. And then thank you all for coming out for the event. I appreciate with the reschedule, everybody making this a priority. It's been really nice, and I feel like the discussion was really wonderful. So I did put all that good stuff in the chat. I'll kind of read through it really quick, but it's the post-event survey. It has that link in there. If you could help us out, that way we kind of know in the future if there's anything that we can improve upon. There's also needs assessment. It's more information about our guide and our mission for psychologists of color. And then the donation link again, and then all of our social medias at Psychologists of Color. So there's the Facebook, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, and the YouTube. But that is pretty much there if you want to click on it. And then if in the future you are interested in more of these events, just keep an eye on your email and we'll continue to send things out.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again, and you all have a wonderful evening.
Yes. Have a great evening, everyone.